G'day friends and fellow artists, welcome to Create with Connor. I'm Connor, and over the past month I've been writing an original soundtrack for a creator on YouTube whom I really admire. Because I care so much about your precious spare time, there's timestamps in the description of all the events in this video so you can navigate it at your leisure. And for most of you, I understand that means skipping to the final product and getting on with your day, so here you go. I just ask if you'd be willing to share this video with ZHC on his social media, Reddit or YouTube channel if you see the potential as I do. That would just make my day. That's the brief. Onwards! On the very first day of this July, I was putting a lot of thought into what I could strive for right now which might lay the foundation for a future which I could feel excited about and not so afraid of. I remember that recently I've had some experiences in creating useful gifts for others, which has been to date really fulfilling, challenging, rewarding and eye-opening. And so I wondered if I might be able to use and nurture my musical talents in a way that enhances storytelling on YouTube, and if that would be appreciated. The term content composer kind of rolls off the tongue quite nicely, so I think I'll use that. There we go. A guiding light for me was this speech by Jim Carrey. I'm a sucker for self-help, but there's two phrases in the speech I tend to write atop my weekly journal pages just to remind myself of them. The one relevant in this video is,
how will you serve the world? What do they need that your talent can provide?
Well, Jim, I think I've figured it out. The question now is merely, who goes first? You know, there's a lot of channels and creators I really admire, and here's a list of all the ones I really aspire to compose for in the future. However, some don't work because music's already their thing. Damn it, Andrew. And others because I'm quite petrified that they're so big and busy they'll never notice my emails when I send them their gift. But even though the latter applies to this creator, I think it's worth the risk. See, ZHC is an art channel I came across in March. It provides this Mr. Beast style of challenges rooted in art, which feature collaborations with other talented artists of all skill levels, and not only that, he donates a lot of money to charity and pays the artists involved exorbitant amounts of money in return for their input, which, for me, represents the global art community in this beautiful, connective and wholesome light that I've never quite seen it under before, and as a classical music dropout, I really can't get enough of it. I want to be a part of this. So I've had my heart set on creating Zach a gift for some time now, but I've waited because I felt I wasn't ready. And that's very true, I'm not ready at all. But if I don't start now, someone else might beat me to it, and I don't think I could forgive myself for being late to my own idea. The question is, where do I begin? And there's no real answer to that, but a clear project brief was a beginning point for me. It's kind of the tangible shift from I have a dream to I have a plan. And frankly, it's key to me being able to complete anything without abandoning it partway through. Because while the I have a dream speech has millions of views on YouTube and seems to resonate with all kinds of people, the I have a plan speech is never quite as popular. The brief, detailed parameters such as the average runtime of a typical ZHC video, which is about 15 minutes long, to the range of moods and genres of the pieces he presently uses, from epic orchestral to hip-hop music. From that point, I could deduce a number of pieces, which was 5, and then create generic titles and briefs for each of those pieces. There I would source other pieces that I could use as reference, which evoked a similar effect I was going for, and then jot down some details. Whether it was the basic structure or form or a simple tempo marking, I could use these to get a grasp of how many bars I might need to fill up that 3 minutes duration for each piece. It's probably needlessly convoluted or methodical, but in this way I'm off to a confident start as I can comfortably comprehend the scope of each of these little projects and see a clear trodden path ahead of me for reassurance, and most importantly, begin with the end in mind. Since, like you, I have a day commitment, which is a cafe job for me, but for you it might be school or work, and I've got several other hobbies I pursue as well, most days I would dedicate just a mere 10 minutes to composing and then call it a day. It wasn't irregular, of course, on a day off, or if I was particularly motivated to get in the zone and work significantly longer, but by nature of just consistent effort applied over time, it took about 2 weeks until several of the tracks were composed to the best of my present ability and were ready for the next stage, which is production. So at this point, which was about 2 weeks ago, I did some research and purchased a digital audio workstation. I understand this to be kind of like Photoshop but for music, I think. I chose Bitwig, but I'm pretty sure they're all meant to do the same thing, albeit in slightly different forms. And once I had this workstation, I needed to get the tools, so I scoured the net for information on where to get the proper instrument sounds I wanted, and learned of these things called sample libraries. And sample libraries are a collection of authentic recordings meticulously programmed to be virtually playable inside a DAW with a MIDI instrument. I chased many a false lead though, and had my heart broken so many times because I would find these excellent sound libraries only to discover that it will cost all of my current life savings and then some. But eventually I fortunately stumbled across a competent and versatile sample library, which is a bit older but opts for a subscription fee model of $15 a month, and as a measly cafe worker, that'll do. After this, I went with the most obvious approach to my beginner brain, having composed the music traditionally, and that was to export the sheet music as what's called MIDI data, and then import that into Bitwig, because Bitwig reads MIDI data, and then one by one attach the samples of each instrument to its correct part, and voila! I've done my first Hans Zimmer. Oh, I couldn't have been more wrong. As is usually the case with something new, it's not as easy as it seems from the outset, or the outside for that matter. There are these things called fundamentals, a learning curve, and obstacles to consider. In trying to produce my two favourite tracks first, which are these big orchestral pieces titled Epic and Symphonic, there were a few minor problems I identified which kept cropping up, namely how robotic the music sounded, probably because it was performed by a robot, but this can be addressed if I simply play the parts individually on my keyboard and use some techniques such as this little modulation wheel and some automation to be more expressive. Another problem I saw regularly was how static dynamics seem, and the pieces lacked that gradual ramping of loudness and softness which often makes real music so compelling and satisfying. It's all sort of moderately loud and then super loud when all the instruments play together. But I think this can be fixed with just manual performance again, and just paying careful attention to the volume. Finally, there was this issue of mixing and mastering. It's a concept I still don't quite get, but I think it's to do with using some sound design techniques to make it more listenable for people on a range of devices. So the obvious solution to this is just to learn up on the skill and practice it. But there's one problem I unfortunately don't think I can fix right now, and it's unfortunately sunk my two proudest pieces beneath the sea till I can hoist them out with a new computer. And that's right, it's the bloody computer that's the problem, as my computer simply doesn't have enough RAM, CPU, or both to handle all the samples. So while that's all a bit sad and really hits me where it hurts, as quite frankly I've developed a bit of paranoia when it comes to wasted time since my days at university, I only need to save up for about 20 weeks on my cafe wage to afford this computer, which should hopefully carry me through the next 5 years or so. Fingers crossed. Which is a small price to pay, I suppose, in the grand scheme of things, as an aspiring YouTuber and composer, and with many other interests that use computers. So, determined not to put the whole project on hold for 20 weeks, I thought it wise to maybe take one of the lesser tracks for a spin in Bitwig, keeping in mind the very real limitations of the technology that I'm now aware of. Which leads us here today to Zach and Turkey's theme, or themes as I maybe should say, as there's a bit of duality to this track that I find quite compelling. So let's do it. Binary form, simple common time, tempi of 100 to 110, approximately 75 to 82 bars, with a happy or jolly mood being portrayed in a primarily major key. Here's my reference pieces and a selection of rhythmic, harmonic and melodic cells I want to interpret and play with, and a list of possible instrumentation based on those used in the reference. You might overlook it, but to bring simple things like these out of obscurity through reference material is actually really helpful for me. For example, having a list of possible instrumentation which you've seen work to your desired effect before is really reassuring, as I find having to pick instruments at the very beginning of a composition without a reference is much like picking a lifelong career after high school, and boy did I that up. All this info acts as a bit of a selection of mediums and equipment for your project, so you can focus on the hard bit first, which is being creative and authentic. Now, note, I try my best here to use it all as reference and not just copy. They're different, I think. To use reference, for me, is to respectfully deconstruct some inspiring material and develop one's own understanding of how and why it works to that particular effect. It's a way of respectfully standing on the shoulders of giants and paying them homage. Should the results sound similar, it would hopefully be by nature of sharing a similar intent, understanding, or process, and not because we simply took a hot glue gun and composed something willy-nilly. So after stealing just enough ideas to get started, I basically filled in the blanks. First an A section, then a B section, and the rest of the project simply unfolded day after day as a series of small tasks, tackled one at a time. Oh, what if the B section is in triple time instead of quadruple? Or what if each section represents a different character, one wholesome and one silly? These are kind of examples of the questions I might ask each day and just led to constant iteration. It's kind of like playing chess, but a little different in that you might make just one or two moves every day with a fresh perspective, and in time slots so small that it's almost procrastination proof. It was just a matter of time, and then kind of like a flower, it just bloomed overnight. It's not perfect, some petals are discoloured, and it's certainly not as photogenic or charming as the flowers in J.J. Ibsen or Jim Guthrie or certainly Hans Zimmer's gardens, but you know, that's okay. They're more practiced, and they've likely failed more times than I've ever tried. So now we're here with a little flower ready for production. It's at this point when I attempted to produce the big orchestral tracks, as I mentioned earlier, and then face-planted miserably. So now we're loading this piece into Bitwig. Having a grasp on my limitations, though, was really helpful, as the game sort of became, how can I produce this piece with as few samples as possible? As a side note, though, I found percussion so much fun in a DAW. Playing with the different noises on a keyboard and hearing the preset patterns or loops is so much more engaging than writing percussion or sheet music to me. See, I found this pack of clock noises and made up a pattern which accompanies the B section. Oh, it's so fun. It was just this spontaneous creation I didn't foresee. I also learned about this thing called chaos from this guy, and how if used it can randomize chosen parameters. So for my example, I could use it for velocity to replicate how real performers can't hit the same velocity of 63% every single time because we're human, but rather strike at, say, random velocities within an acceptable range, like 58 to 67%. It's a tiny, barely noticeable touch, but it's small details like that which I imagine add up to make a more moving piece of art. I'm not there yet though. This isn't a Hans Zimmer flower, it's my flower. But after 2 wilted attempts and a feeling of incompetence, it's really nice to have something at all. So I'm super excited to share this premiere piece with you and want to thank you in advance for being here with me. It's been an honor and a privilege to share in some of your precious free time. I now present to you Zack and Turkey's theme, composed July 2019 by Connor Schumacher-Kulzel for exclusive use by Zack Isaiah Comic Art on the ZHC Art channel on YouTube and me. I hope you love it, and here it is. If you're wondering what's next, what I'd really love to do is produce those 2 orchestral tracks because I'm so proud of them. But I'm gonna have to wait, as we know. So I'll save up as quickly as I can with my cafe job and some other freelance work to buy that computer. But in the meantime, I really want to focus on composing the track I completely scrapped earlier because it sucked. It's meant to be an upbeat jazz/electronica track which plays as Zach grinds through a challenge in the midpoints of his videos. This grants me the opportunity to study jazz music more, which I'm always happy to do, and learn more about sound design and synthesis, which is something equally alien and scary to my little brain. So if you know any quality tips, books, or resources for learning jazz theory, chill or ambient electronic music production, or understanding synthesis which have helped you, would you please be willing to share them in the comments section below? I'd really appreciate that. Please and thank you. And that brings me to what's most exciting about this channel, and it's in the name. If you want to collaborate on a project like this for someone you admire, then please let me or others know in the comments section, or if you want to keep it private, use this email account. I would love to collaborate with everyone I possibly can, and I'm willing to spend every spare moment away from my day job pursuing my ambition of enhancing the content of creators I love with my talents and collaborating with a ridiculous number of artists in a variety of diverse fields and skill levels. Beginners, you're included also, because I am a beginner too. I want this channel to be a hub or a home for collaborative artists of all kinds, so please remember that it's not just me here. Every single name or picture in the comments section is a person with talents, interests, inspiring stories, and ambitions. So I encourage you not to wait for your own creative inspiration or motivation, but rather to go out and become someone else's. If you subscribe, this community grows and accommodates more collaborative opportunities. If you like, this video appears to more people and potentially brings more subscribers. I'll also understand this content's appreciated and make more of it. If you dislike, the opposite occurs, of course. If you comment or email, I'd be honored to respond and greet, thank, and chat with you. Constructive feedback is most welcome also. This is your home as much as mine after all. I'll be taking notes. If you share this video, you're introducing to the people that you love something they might benefit from, and I could never thank you enough for that. And finally, if you donate, then you'll add to the money I spend out of pocket to afford the equipment, education, and help to improve the quality and quantity of content I'm able to deliver and build us a better home. It's been an absolute pleasure to share with you this early glimpse into my life's work and passion, and hope you feel inspired. I can't wait to interact with and connect with you in the comments or the next piece of content. But before you go, I ask if you'd pretty please evaluate how precious your own free time is, and consider consuming less of someone else's content, products, or lifestyle, including me, and create your own. Even better, share those gifts you make with the people you love and admire. All the best, your pal.